You're lost, brother, Donnie crowed, revealing the last complete popsicle stick with a flourish. Leo glowered at the half of a stick that was left in his hand. His brow furrowed as he stared at the stick, like it would give him answers as to why it had betrayed him so. Why did we switch to drawing sticks for pizza runs? Whatever happened to good old game of rock, paper, scissors? Mikey kept losing, Raph said, already fishing one hand around inside their collective pizza funds jar. So I figured this would be a little more fair. Mikey, perched on the table next to Raph, rubbed the back of his head, his cheeks flushing a bit as he looked to the side. Raph patted him encouragingly on the head as he pulled his other hand back out the jar, counting up the coins in his palm. Fair? How is this fair? Donnie clearly cheated, Leo complained, jabbing an accusatory finger in Donnie's direction. Look at that look on his face. He clearly did something. I would never. Donnie crossed his arms, raising one of his sharpy eyebrows in mock hurt. And really, Nardo, were you the one holding the sticks at the start? How would you propose I even did that? Where is your proof? Well, what about ordering it in? Whatever happened to that? Leo pressed, waving his hands around in large dramatic motions. Mikey swung his feet forwards as he slid off the table and landed on his feet with a small bounce. It's a pick-up special night, he said. We get 2 whole pies for the price of 1. And so, of course, we ordered 4. Donnie deadpanned, typing something into his wristwatch. Now, if you please, I estimate the pizza will be out of the oven in exactly 18 minutes based on the last 20 times we ordered it. So be on your way now. Shoo-shoo, go. But couldn't April... Leo kept trying, but Raph pried open Leo's right hand and pressed the change into his palm. Come on, Leo. The pizza's going to get cold. We did as fair and square. He stared at Leo, putting on his puppy-eyed pleading face, and Leo couldn't exactly say no to that look, now could he? Leo sighed loud enough to make sure everyone heard it, but tucked the money away in his pouch. Fine, he grumbled. Raph patted him encouragingly on the shell as Leo passed by to head to the nearest ladder to the surface. But I called dibs on the first slice, he called over his shoulder. He chuckled as he heard a faint boo echo behind him. Leo approached the slightly rusty ladder that led up to the nearest sewer lid and glanced up at it. He reached for the first rung, but hesitated, considering his options. Actually, let's take a shortcut, he murmured, unsheathing his sword in one smooth motion. His reflection winked back at him as he drew the sword forwards and started to carefully draw bigger and bigger circles in the air. With a soft crackle, a blue portal snapped into existence, vibrant and brimming with energy. The only problem was that it was too small for Leo to feasibly fit through it. Fine, he sighed, sheathing the sword. The portal winked out of existence, and Leo started to painstakingly ascend the ladder. Looks like we're doing this the old-fashioned way. It was late, but New York still bustled on, lights making the alleyways and corners appear that much darker. Leo remained there, in that twilight area between the human and the yokai world, with a practiced ease as he ducked into an alleyway and scaled a drainpipe to get to the roofs. He'd never admit it, but he didn't actually mind going on these pizza runs. Sure, it was a bother, and he could be watching the Jupiter Jim movie that Donnie had no doubt resumed watching without him right now. Of course, Raph would make sure they re-watched the parts Leo missed. But it was sometimes nice to just have some space. The feeling of his feet slapping against the buildings as he jumped from one to the next, the way the moon always looked bigger and brighter at this time, even the distant screeches of the weirdest things New York had to offer, like fake wizards, or a small group of mutant silverfish, or even the more recent group of flat earthers. It was comforting. It was familiar. He made it to their favourite pizza place in record time, crouching low on the opposite rooftop as he scoped out the situation inside the pizza parlour. "Couldn't just get Husos, could they?" he muttered, squinting as he tried to spy which pizza box set out had their names on it. "Just had to make me figure out how to get the pizzas from the no mutants allowed area." He spotted a stack of 4 boxes, one with a short word on top that maybe said either Leo or Raph. It was too far away to be sure. "Okay, this time, for sure," he muttered, drawing his sword again. It was like a video game. Wait for the waiter to pass, avoid the chef setting out more pizzas, aim, and bingo! A blue portal popped up next to Leo above the pizza boxes. He reached both hands in, fishing around for the edge of the boxes as he squinted against the blinding blue light suddenly right in his face. He felt the edge of the top box and followed it down, snatching the 4 hot boxes and pulling them against his chest. The portal started to shrink, and Leo threw the money from his pouch into it just before it vanished. They ate here far too often to be banned for dine and dashing. It was rare to have 4 pizzas to carry, though. Normally, there was just one of them that they all split. Even if it was just paying for 2 tonight, Leo decided that Dad must have been in a good mood. There was no way Raph had enough money for 2 pizzas stored up. They always ate through their pizza money the second they had any available. Perhaps he was just impressed that his 4 sons were genetically related to the movie star Lujitsu. That was definitely something worth celebrating. Leo carefully picked up the 4 boxes, using his chin to press down on them to make sure they didn't fall. He turned a bit, staring back at the multitudes of rooftops he now had to jump across with precious cargo. The smell of melted cheese was now heavy in the air, and his stomach growled loudly. Leo wilted, slumping over the boxes in his arms. "There has to be a better way to do this," he said. He glanced at his sword. "What do you say? 2 out of 3? The sword, of course, did not give a response, nor did it apparently feel like going for 2 out of 3. After waving it around and cursing it a lot, Leo had come to the conclusion that slowly jogging back was the only way to go. It was painstakingly slow compared to the trip over, and the smell of the pizza made it feel that much more unbearable. Leo was so caught up in making sure his packages were delivered safely, however, that he remained unaware to the presence of 2 small gargoyles watching him from overhead. "Hey there!" a voice chirped, and Leo startled, nearly tipping backwards into an alleyway he'd just hopped over. He glanced upwards, eyes flicking from place to place, until his gaze landed on what he was looking for. 2 small little black bodies, barely held aloft by small wings, greeted him. Leo squinted at them, perplexed. "Do I know you?" One of them flew forwards, his sharp little face nearly touching his. "Know us? Of course you know us. We're Hugin and Munin," the other added helpfully. Right, and Munin," the gargoyle continued. "And we're the official henchmen of none other than—" "Oh, wait, right," Leo realised. "You're Baron Draxum's shoulder pads!" He whirled around, completely missing the slightly offended and proud looks of Hugin and Munin's faces, as he focused instead on scanning the rooftops, while his grip on the pizza boxes tightened. Was Draxum here? Not that Leo was scared or anything. Of course not. But, well, he didn't exactly dream of fighting murderous mutants by himself. At this point, Leo realised the gargoyles were still talking, but it was too late to tune in now. If Draxum appeared, he wouldn't be ideal to fight alone, especially while his stupid sword was on the fritz. The gargoyles had come closer to him now, and were hovering directly in his way. "Sorry, we'll have to chat later. Gotta go!" he shouted, shoulder-checking the 2 gargoyles so they were sent spinning out of his way. "Hey!" an indignant voice shouted, as Leo leaped into the air, scrambling to not drop the pizzas as he dropped and rolled onto the next roof. He ended the roll clumsily on his back, rocking slightly as he skidded forwards on his shell, and had to use forward momentum to leap back onto his feet. One pizza box slipped, and he barely saved it from hitting the ground. "What? Not even a greeting? I thought you at least have the decency to stay and exchange a few words." The voice was already right behind him, and Leo jolted, glancing backwards. Right, they flew. Of course he couldn't lose them so easily. "Wasn't he supposed to be the funny one?" the other gargoyle asked from behind him. Leo started running again, not allowing himself to stop and catch his breath. "Oh, well, my brother's really ordered a rush delivery," he managed to say in between gasps. He glanced over his shoulder and winced when he saw the two keeping up with his pace. Was he out of shape? No way. It must be him trying to balance 4 pizza boxes while doing this. At that thought, his eyes darted back down towards the pizza boxes, and Leo groaned as a very bad idea struck him. "No, don't make me choose," he whined, legs still pumping as fast as he could go, while awkwardly holding everything. "You guys are the worst! Just for making me do this! You hear me?" He yelled over his shoulder at the 2 pests that were still right behind him. He grabbed the top pizza box. "Sorry, Raph," and threw it like a frisbee at one of the gargoyles. Hugin, maybe? Really, they kind of looked the same to Leo. Hugin avoided it, his sharp little face grinning wider than he already had been doing. "Ha! You missed! Gah!" He vanished into an alleyway beneath them, this time Donnie's Pizza acting as tribute. "Ha ha!" Leo cheered. "Score 1 for the turtles! Donnie, you owed me for stealing my allowance last week anyways." His gaze swung to the remaining gargoyle, whose eyes widened. Moonan squeaked. "Can we maybe talk about this?" The pizza box hit him in the face, and he tumbled into the alleyway after the other one. Leo paused, leaning over the edge of the building to watch Moonan crash right on top of Hugin, who had been trying to climb out of the dumpster. The force of the fall made the lid swing shut on top of both of them. "Well," Leo said, scratching the top of his head. "Talk about taking out the trash." He glanced down at the remaining box in his hands. It was, not surprisingly, the box with his own name on it. "Oh, man, the pizza, though," he groaned. "Maybe I overreacted to 2 flying rats, gargoyles. But they better not make me pay for it. This wasn't my fault, obviously." He pondered it for a moment, pacing on the rooftop before the thudding and distant cries of trapped gargoyles made him stop. He crouched down to stare at the dumpster before nodding. "Right, well, they'd never need to know about this. If I just say that maybe it was like 8 bad guys or maybe even Baron Draxum himself, they won't even be able to be mad. It only makes sense that I had to make sacrifices." "Oh, well, in that case, maybe I can help you out." Leo reacted immediately, his hand shooting to his sword's hilt as he unsheathed it and whirled to face Draxum behind him in one fluid motion. The yokai stared down at him, a smirk on his face, as he stepped down off the purple roots that had lifted him onto the rooftop. "I came here to ask you." "Absolutely not! I am not facing you on a rooftop again!" Leo interrupted. He glanced down at the last pizza. "Sorry," he whispered, before he wound his arm back and hurled the box at Draxum's face. Clearly a pizza box assault was the last thing that he was expecting, because the yokai just stood there and took the corner of the box right in between his eyes. The box crumpled and opened just enough for gooey cheese to cover his face, and, more importantly, his eyes. Leo didn't wait another second. He took off again, gripping his sword tightly as one hand fished around in his pouch for his cell phone. He furiously punched in the numbers and held the phone up by his earhole. "Come on, Raph! Pick up the phone! Pick up the phone! Pick up the phone!" There was a moment where the ringing dial tone continued before Raph's voice answered. "Raph! Quick! I need... And that's a recording, Leo realised as the pre-recorded message he had heard so many times continued. Why didn't I call Donnie? He's the one always glued to his technology. Rav sometimes forgets to charge. Whoa! Hey, that is not okay! He yelped, skidding to a stop as purple roots burst from the cement right in front of him. His momentum lost, his arms pinwheeled furiously as he attempted to turn and keep going. The roots shot towards him and he jumped, landing on one before hopping onto the next. A grin grew on his face as he realised that he just had to keep moving, and he did a flip in the air before gracefully landing on the next one. And he sticks the landing! There was a cracking sound, and Leo's face froze as his phone fell apart with a small tinkle of scattering glass and electronics. A smaller root had spearheaded his phone from behind, puncturing a perfect hole through the centre. Whoa, this was the worst Realcom reception I've ever experienced! Leo wobbled as the roots shifted, Draxum appearing just above him on another root. The yokai flicked off the last string of cheese from one of his horns, face almost expressionless as he stared down at Leo. There's nowhere to run, Draxum said, a smug smile finally crossing his lips. Now, why don't you make it easier for both of us and just come along quietly? Leo's eyes darted towards his sword. Oh, is that what you think? He asked. Because I'm just getting started. He jumped, bringing the sword down on Draxum, who blocked it with one armoured arm with ease. His orange eyes narrowed, and Leo had just enough time to brace himself before he was sent hurtling backwards, skipping across building tops like a pebble across water. Leo finally stopped, then he hit an advertising billboard with a cracking sound, denting the metal and sliding down into a seated position. The familiar sound of cars and chatter cut out, a loud ringing sound filling Leo's head instead. He blinked a few times, opening his eyes to stare up at the clear night sky. Ugh, he groaned, pressing one hand to his temple. He felt sick and dizzy, and through a blurry gaze he could see Draxum gliding towards him on his roots. Leo tried to stand, but his legs shook, and the urge to throw up only seemed to grow with each movement. He wobbled, and had to use his sword as a crutch to prop himself up. I knew fighting him up here was a bad idea, he muttered. Through the ringing, Draxum's voice took on a sinister tone, the yokai approaching Leo slowly as a cat cornered its prey. That wasn't very impressive, was it? He asked. He tilted his head, still staring at Leo. Want to try that again? No. Leo managed to get out, leaning against the bulletin board. But I'm willing to try this. With a shaking arm, he used his sword to draw a circle in the air between him and Draxum. The portal burst into life, small but not small enough that it wouldn't work. For once, Leo didn't even care if he got the destination right. He just moved, only able to focus on getting away. He dived through the portal, arms outstretched as he made a last-ditch, desperate attempt to get the hell out of Dodge. And, for a second, he thought he made it. The familiar sewer air kissing his face as he made it through the portal. He even managed to portal home too, with what felt like a concussion on top of everything else going on. His brothers would be impressed once they hear about his adventurous night out, Leo thought, woozy but pleased. He turned to watch the portal snap shut, but then he felt it, a hand on his ankle, nails digging into his skin, a grip tightening and tightening until it hurt. And with his already bad balance, Leo was easily being yanked backwards, the sword clattering to the floor beside him, and he was being pulled back through his own portal. He scrambled blindly at the floor, searching for something to grab onto, but he couldn't reach anything. He needed help. Where was everyone? This is bad, bad, bad. Guys! Leo yelled, kicking at the hand. He saw stars. Anyone? And the portal disappeared, almost as if it had never been there. Only a sword remained, forgotten on the sewer floor.